Hi, good evening everyone. So today is the day 10th of the Gear Up Means Answer Writing. Today we will discuss the modern India questions, and this week was completely for the modern Indian questions. If you are new to this course, you can enroll at the Edukemy website at free of cost. You will get a question on daily basis on a Telegram group. You can join the Shabir's Edukemy on Telegram, where you will get the question in the morning at 11 a.m. and you can submit your answer on the Edukemy portal, so it can be evaluated by our expert mentor. And daily from Monday to Friday, I will be there at 6 p.m. to discuss that question, and the questions are all related to the previous year question only. Okay, so last week we discussed the ancient India, medieval and the culture, and this week we are discussing the modern history. And the next week will be started with the geography, then the society we will start. Okay, so let's start the question. So today's question was related to labor. The question was, why indentured labor was taken by British from India to other colonies? Have they been able to preserve their cultural identity over there? The question is saying why the indentured labor was taken from the British from India to the other colonies of the Britisher, and have they preserved their culture identity or not? So the question is having the two part. In the one part, we need to be why the labor were taken from India. In the second part, we need to be write about the cultural identity they preserve there. Okay. So in the body part, we need to be address the two part of the question. But in introduction, we need to write about the indentured labor. Actually, what was the indentured labor? What was the concept of indentured labor? So we need to write that in the introduction, and then we will conclude the answer after writing the body part. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Indentured labor. Indentured labor was a kind of the bonded labor which was introduced after the abolition of slavery by the British. In the indentured labor is signing a contract for some small period of a time in a different country. Like a person who is signing a 1 month contract to go went into the we can say the Trinidad and Tobago, and he will work for 1 month there in a particular contract. So indentured labor was those kind of the labor. They signed an agreement with the British government for working in some specific condition into the another country where the British were sending them. So the concept of the indentured labor was started after the abolition of slavery by the British. And this concept was started in the Mauritius first. Mauritius was also a British colony at that time, and this was started at the Mauritius first. They give a new term to this, the new experiment. They give a term to this, the new experiment in the Mauritius. And at the first time when they are started this concept of indentured labor, hi Smart, good evening. When they started the indentured labor, the 95% of the Indian was sent as a labor to the Mauritius. So in introduction, you can write about the indentured labor. Indentured labor are the kind of the bonded labor which signed a contract with the Britisher for working in a specific condition in the different country for a particular period of time. And the indentured labor was a concept was introduced after the abolition of slavery by the Britisher. And the first time it was started in the Mauritius with the name of the new experiment. Okay, I hope the introduction is clear to everyone. So we can define the indentured labor in introduction itself. Now, before going to the question, we can list out some of the issues related to the indentured labor. What are the major issues related to the indentured labor when they are going outside the country? We can write down 2-3 points. Maybe it's the cultural issue, it's racial issue, the issue related to the pay. They are not paying equal pay to those who are paying to the other one. So these are some of the issues they are facing there. So we started with the issue faced by the indentured labor first, then we will see the part why they are sending the indentured labor to the other colony. Then we will come to the final part of the question, okay, is they are able to preserve their culture? So we will see according to the question there, according to the demand of the question. Okay, so let's see the body part here. So we will follow this pattern to write the body part. First we write the issue. We can represent the issue in a tabular form, so it will save our time. And so we need to give a reference of the issue faced by the indentured labor. Okay? So we will write about the issue faced by the indentured labor. Then we will write the reason to recruitment of the indentured labor into the other colonies by Britisher. Then we will write the preserve identity. Preserve identity. This is a 15 marker. So we will write this question in 250 words. So we can write about the each of the issue phase, reason to recruit the indentured labor, then the preserve identity. Okay. So let's come to the first one, the issue faced. If you see in the South Africa, the most of them were facing about the cultural issue. They are facing the racial issue also. The poll issue, they are imposing the poll tax. They are cancelling the marriage certificate of the Indians. So we will look into one by one what was a major issue faced by the indentured labor there. So let's look at it. Number one, the cultural harassment. When the Indians are going to the other country as indentured labor, like specifically in the South Africa, they are facing the cultural issue, cultural harassment from the resident of the African colonies of the British. Then if I am coming to the legal aspect, they are asking to the poll tax from Indians, cancelling the marriage certificate of Indians, and some of the other legal issue as well. They are facing there as an indentured labor. Then the racial discrimination, even the Mahatma Gandhi faced the racial discrimination there. So the indentured labor they are sending to the other country, to the Africa or some of the other colonies of the British, they are facing the racial discrimination also. Unequal pay, this bonded labor, the indentured labor are the kind of the bonded labor, they are getting the very less pay, where the other laborer at the same colony are getting the higher pay. So the unequal pay was also an issue faced by the indentured labor. Then the restriction on indentured labor, you cannot do this thing, you cannot do this thing, you cannot do this thing. So the restriction on the indentured labor, this is the contract, you can do the thing in this contract only. The time period. So these were the common issue faced by the indentured labor when they are taken to the other British colony. Now come to the next part of the question, why the British were recruiting the Indian as an indentured labor into the another colony. So this is the demand of the question. So let's see about why they are recruiting the Indians. So reasons for recruitment of the indentured labor. Number one, as we write in the introduction, the indentured labor system or bonded labor system was started after the end of the slavery. As the slavery ended by the Britisher, then the indentured labor concept started. So, and the end of the slavery, so there is a requirement of the labor. As the slavery ended, so there was a requirement of the labor. So the Britisher want to show that this freely movable labor system is much better than the slavery system. So this freely movable labor system is much better than the slavery system. So they want to show, so they hired the indentured labor from the country and sending them to the different country. Like to the African country, Caribbean country, they are sending them. Laborer as a choice and not as an option. Second, laborer as a choice, not as an option. If we see the African country at the time, they were the self-sustainable. most of them are involved in the cattle. They are milking the cattle, they are giving them, they are involved with them only. So they are not thinking about the labor work, they are doing their own work. So the requirement of the labor there, so labor as a choice, not as an option. So they are working as a laborer there. So they are sending the laborer to the African country. Okay. Next, third point is the availability of the labor pool. Availability means specifically availability in the India, because we are writing the question in the Indian context. We are writing the question in the Indian context. So we will write here the availability of the labor pool means during that time there was a lack of employment in the country due to the failure of the artisanal business, agriculture पे highest tax था, famine issues, and some of the other issues related to the British policy in the country was there. So from the specific state, from the Uttar Pradesh, from the Bihar, from the Madhya Pradesh, from the central India part, the availability of the labor was very much there. Excess labor supply from that part. So if the availability of the labor was there, so the Britisher was sending those labor to the other country as an indentured labor. Next is escape from poverty. If we see in our context, in present context, the migration issue, why the person is moving from the one place to other, the reason was poverty. They want to earn something. They want to get self-sufficient. So to reduce the poverty, if at a place I have no work, I am unemployed, so I am trying to do some work, so if it's maybe in the another place. So the escape from the poverty, at the time there was no employment, no agriculture, there was like a declining in the agriculture also, declining in the artisanal industry. So the people want to escape from the poverty, so they are preferring this route. The people in the India want to escape from the poverty, so they are escaping this route and moving to the other British colony as an indentured labor or the bonded labor. Communication gap. Communication gap between the people, those who are hiring these laborers. They are telling something, so they are not understanding the real concept of these laborers. And they are signing the contract with those laborers and they are not able to understand the contract as well. So there was a communication gaps between the laborer and the recruiter. Next is nature of the Indian groups, and the India is famous for their work. Even in the present context, our doctors, our engineers, are highly skilled in the world. Similarly, at that same time, Indians were considered as the most preferable labor in the world, because we can work for the higher working hours due to the quietness of the Indians, less pay, high time of the work, longer period of working. So these grouping of the nature of the Indian grouping was preferred at the another British colonies. So you can write here the region of recruitment of indentured labor. So the first we discuss about the issue faced by the indentured labor, the cultural harassment. You cannot wear this, you cannot wear your pagadi, you cannot wear your religious symbol, you cannot keep the beard. So we see these issues, cultural, legal, racial restrictions. Then we focused on the main demand, the region of the recruit of the indentured labor. This was region slavery, so end of the slavery, so requirement of labor increase, demand of the labor increase. So given a particular time of the period in a particular place, that was a good thing for the Britisher. कि आपको इतने समय के लिए यहाँ पे काम करना, you will work for 2 months in Africa, you will work for 6 months in the Caribbean country, you will work for 6 months in the Mauritius. Then availability of the labor pool we discussed about in the availability in the central India was very high there. Escape from the poverty because of some of the conditions, some of the policy by the British in India. Then the communication gap and the nature of the Indian groupings were some of the reason why they recruit indentured labor. Clear? Any doubt till here? Okay, let's move to the next part. Is they able to preserve their identity? Is they able to preserve their culture? So what happened with the culture now? So we will discuss that also. So okay, let's come to the third part here. In the third part, where are they able to preserve their identity? कहाँ पे वो preserve कर पाए? Blending in the culture. Like if the some of the person is living in the some of the other country for the years, for the 6 months, for 2 years, for 3 years, so their culture similarities start appearing because of the blending of the culture. If we are some other person living in the Africa for a longer time, so their culture start mix up. Maybe they opt for the some of the Indian culture, maybe they opt for the some of the African culture by the Indians. So the blending of the culture was started. Then the transformed festival, like the some of the Indians were sending to the, it was example given there, some of the Indian were sending to Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean country. So the Muharram, a Muslim festival, was start celebrating there with another name. So the transformation of the festival also, how they start celebrating the Indian festival in the some of the one way or the another way. Contemporary expression, start matching their culture, start matching the festival and some of the other work related to the contemporary expression there, कि जिसकी वजह से वो लोग start mix होना शुरू हो गए कि हाँ ये चीजें हो सकती हैं, this can be done, this can be not be done. तो contemporary की religion से related, specifically the related to religions. Then the cultural fusion start adopting the culture of the country where they are living. Cultural fusion, some of them are escaping to the wild and stay there for a longer time, so they are adopting the culture of that country, and the country is also adopting the culture of the Indians. And the last is the fusion of the new trend of migration, means when they over the contract of the indentured labor was over, they come to the Indian for a lesser number of days and then again went to those colony for the working. So that new trend was appeared at that time. Fusion of new trend of migration was appeared. So you need to address the introduction part. You can define the indentured labor. The system was started by ending of the slavery, and the first time they were imported to the Mauritius, the 95% of the labor. It was a bonded labor which you need to be worked for a particular specific time of the period in some specific country or the specific colony of the Britisher. You can define the introduction in this way. Then you will define what was the major issue faced by the British indentured labor in that British colony. We discussed those features also. Then we will write about why the indentured labor was hired by the Britisher for the other colony. And then how they were able to preserve cultural identity. It's not like only the Indians were hired. Even the Chinese one also hired, and some of the other British colony was also, a person from the other colonies were also hired for the indentured labor. And the preference was like the Indians, because the Indian are suitable with the every environment. They can work on the tea plantation, they can also work in the South Africa, they can also work in the Mauritius. So that's why they can work for the longer hour. So that's why the Indian was preferred as a indentured labor. So this was the main demand of the question. Now we can conclude the question in a lucid way. कैसे हम conclude करेंगे? We will write that they hired the indentured labor. Some of the conditions were there that lead to the indentured labor system, but later on, it's the cultural identity, the mixing of the culture, the blending of the culture, the requirement of the Indians, removal from the poverty. These were some of the issues which lead to this indentured labor system. Okay, so you can conclude in this way. So this was the today's question. Now we will give you the new question on Monday. Till then you can revise all the 10 questions till now. From day 1 to the day 10 you can revise the question. Please try to write the answers and submit on the Edukemy portal so it can be evaluated. We are also starting with our GS MSP main support program. And that main support program has started from the 19th, where we are giving the practice test, sectional test, and the full length test. Also the explanation of the PYQ, discussion of the test, practice test, evaluation also. So it's a comprehensive program for a good answer writing skills, for retention of the concept, retention of the some of the important answers, how to write, what to write, how to use this information, how to use the case study, how to use the examples. So all will be dealt under this single program. That's why its name is support. So we are started with the GS main support program. If you are new one who are started answer writing, who are complete their GS foundation course, so they can join this program for the 2024. Okay, so we will meet on Monday at 6 p.m. With the new question. If any of the doubts you people have, you can mention in the comment section there, or you can also message in the Telegram groups. Okay, thank you very much.